Hey all, Chris Mystery Cleaning Windows of the File Coast once again. Just wanted to drop a video today, as the title of this video would suggest. Traditional window cleaning and water-fed pole window cleaning. The pros and cons, if you like, of both. Now before we unpack this, before we start, I just want to make this abundantly clear. It's not my intention to play, if you like, one faction here, traditional, versus water-fed pole off against each other. You know, both factions, if you like, brought together, make up a proportion of the population that actually had the minerals to start a business in the first place, okay? There are few people that can start a business. There are even fewer people that can actually make it work. So if you've started a business in the window cleaning industry, whether you are a traditional window cleaner or whether you are a water-fed pole window cleaner, then quite frankly, you deserve you know, a pat on the back, if you like, for actually giving it a go in the first place, because most people don't even care. Most people won't even make a start. So yeah, let's just park the animosity, if you like. But I just wanted to do the video because I've had interactions with a number of people, be that at, you know, the Cleaning Expo when I went down there in September, people that have reached out online, social media, even here on YouTube, etc., and asked questions about sort of getting started and the pros and cons, if you like, of both. So to that end then, let's sort of discuss, if you like, traditional water-fed pole, the pros and cons of each. Okay, so start with the positives first, okay, the pros of traditional window cleaning, okay. Most people starting a business within the window cleaning industry will not necessarily go straight for water-fed pole, even if that's what they really want to do. A lot of people will start traditional window cleaning because it's a relatively inexpensive business to start. You can start from as little as maybe £500 all in. It would include a ladder, belt kit, squeegees, mops, cloths, soaps, you know, poles for shop front windows and all that sort of good stuff. The lot, generally speaking. It can be done, traditional window cleaning, it can be done without the need of expensive kit and vehicles. I know a handful of guys that work in the Blackpool area near to where I live. One guy in particular stands out, a guy called Eric, who's seen the channel. Hope you're well, Eric. He has been a traditional window cleaner for about 20 odd plus years. Has never had a driver's license and covers the area of central Blackpool, and he literally walks from one end to the other, house to house, in a nice compact area, and cleans windows without the need of a vehicle. And if it works for him, happy days. But it does illustrate a point, yeah, whether it's something that you want to do long term, you know, walking house to house, or whether it's something to get you started because perhaps you're too young to have a driver's license, perhaps you haven't got enough money to have a driver's license, perhaps you've been banned from driving, etc. You know, you need not let stuff like that get in your way. Start with what you have. You have the opportunity to buy a ladder, you have the opportunity to buy a belt kit. Just because you can't drive a vehicle does not mean that some of these business ideas are off limits to you, so long as you've got compact work, or you can get compact work together. If you live in a city area, you don't need to be, you know, perfect to start, but you do need to start to eventually get perfect. It is increasingly becoming an industry in demand. Now, why would I say that as a water-fed pole window cleaner? The bottom line is, the truth of the matter is that traditional window cleaning is becoming a dying art, because a lot of people coming into the industry, if they have a pot of money, will probably go straight to the water-fed pole route and bypass the traditional window cleaning. And the reason for that is that they have money, or at least access to finance, and are prepared to sort of bypass and speed the process up of growing a business. But in my humble opinion, every person that starts a window cleaning business should have, at the very least, a basic understanding of how to do traditional window cleaning. Excuse me. The reason for that is because you cannot clean the inside of someone's windows with a water-fed pole without pissing someone off. You cannot do the inside of a shop window with water-fed pole, you know, without taking a mop with you. It's not the ideal, okay? You can clean the outside windows and the inside windows with a traditional. But with water-fed pole, you can only do the outsides, really, unless you use, for example, Dragonfly or Stingray, which I'll probably do a video about in due course. But generally speaking, interior windows can only really be done using the traditional method, and water-fed pole is not generally suited to interior window cleaning. That's just my take on it. The downsides are, you are restricted, I think, when it comes to weather, okay? No one wants to climb a wet ladder and risk their lives for a tenner. It's just not bloody worth it, chaps, yeah? And chapesses, it's just not worth it. Because, you know, climbing a ladder at the best of times, okay, is a calculated risk. It's a calculated risk. It doesn't mean that every time someone climbs a ladder, oh, he's going to have an accident, oh. But it does mean the more you climb a ladder, there is a higher chance at some point you may have an accident. And it might not be today, and it might not be tomorrow, and it might not be 6 years from now. But at some point, it's extremely likely that you will have an accident. Okay. I myself have had an accident. I was clearing a gutter at first floor. I was clearing on the ground floor gutter. I was clearing a conservatory gutter. And I went up the ladder. I only went up like 3 or 4 steps. And I didn't mount the ladder properly. It wasn't straight, if you like. And as I got to to where I was standing, I gestured some stuff from the gutter towards me. I thought the gutter was moving. Turns out that the gutter wasn't moving. It was me, and I came down that ladder about 3 or 4 times faster than the way I went up, and yeah, bloody well hurt. I fell sideways across a decorative concrete, you know, sort of flower pot bed type effort, and it put me in clink for about 3 or 4 days. I was in absolute agony. So, you know, so the thing is, again, no one goes to work with the mindset of, today, I'm going to have an accident today. Sometimes I think the more and more people climb ladders, the more complacent they can get. And, you know, complacency leads to perhaps taking shortcuts or overstretching or, you know, and all this sort of stuff. And at some point, it's likely that you're going to have at least 1 fall or 2 falls being a traditional window cleaner. And if traditional guys are being honest about it, you know, they will just say, well, you know, yeah, but it's a risk that we accept, and, you know, and fair play to you. It's just something to be aware of. It's not, I'm not saying don't be a window cleaner, don't be a traditional window cleaner. I'm not saying don't climb a ladder. All I'm saying is, if you are going to climb a ladder, then have at the very least a minimalist understanding that at some point you may have an accident, and you just have to be willing to accept that. But you can only, you know, you don't buy a car with you, you know, planning it for it to break down, but, you know, you understand that at some point it will happen, and it's much the same thing. So again, with, you know, because you are climbing and because there is an increased risk of an accident, your insurance premiums are going to be a little bit higher. Some guys that operate solo as a traditional window cleaner do not have insurance, and that's a matter for each individual, whether you choose to have insurance or not. But I would seriously consider, in fact, Nate, you know, insist that if you are working as a pair doing traditional window cleaning, you need insurance. Because if your guy comes off that ladder and he says, whoa, you know, Chris sent me up that ladder and blah blah, now I've got 2 broken legs, now I can't work and I'm going to sue you and all this sort of stuff, and you don't have public liability insurance or employer's liability insurance, etc., you know, you're going to find yourself in dink pretty quick with the local authority, with the health and safety executive. Believe me, you want to find out, you know, how bad things can get, then cut as many corners as you want. But at some point you will get caught out, and they will come down on you like a 30-foot ton of crap, and it won't be a very comfortable place to be. I would say that, you know, going back to what I was saying about weather and stuff like that, particularly high winds, not necessarily even rain, you can blade a window down in the rain, you just got to be able to take more cloths with you and ensure that you can detail as best you can the windows. The biggest problem I find for traditional window cleaning is not necessarily the rain, it's the wind. Because if it's windy and you're trying to blade a window down, you've got soap going everywhere, you know, it can be a problem. Now, so long as the winds aren't too high, water-fed pole guys will cut through their work in pretty much all weathers, all but the most extreme weather. Like, you know, if the wind goes over 60 mile an hour, then, or, you know, 60 or 70 mile an hour, then quite frankly, you're probably better off not bothering from a safety perspective. Thundering and lightning again, you know, do you really want to be waving a 30-foot lightning rod around, whether that's a metal ladder or a carbon fibre pole? I'd rather not find out just how conductive a water-fed pole is or a ladder is. That's just my take. With that in mind, then, you know, what are the downsides to sort of, you know, your traditional? For a lot of the reasons that we've discussed, that, you know, starting up a business with traditional is relatively inexpensive, it's an Achilles heel, because if you want to grow a business and bring someone else in, you are going to have to train someone, presumably. Either take someone on who knows the job, you know, or you're going to have to train someone. And if you have to train someone, it will take you months, I think, to train someone to a high enough standard that you can trust them to do a good job. And in that time, because it's a relatively inexpensive way of starting a business, what's to stop the guy you've just trained up ultimately setting up on his own? At which point, I mean, taking out aside from the fact that, you know, that guy could ultimately set up in an area and be a potential rival in your area. Aside from that, you've just wasted all those months training this guy for him to ultimately go off and do what you've done. Now, that doesn't usually happen in water-fed pole because of the expense of the machine, etc. It's not really a consideration when it comes to me training up another guy, because if he wants to go off and do what I've done, he probably will, and I have no control over it. But unlike water-fed pole, where you can perhaps train a guy up in an afternoon, the Billy Basics, obviously you would still, me personally, I would shadow him for a couple of weeks, you know, and when he's got himself to a position where I think I can trust him with the customers, then I'll release him to go and work solo, etc. But the Billy Basics can be taught to someone within an afternoon of supervising them. The same can't be said of traditional window cleaning. You know, some guys pick it up really, really quickly in a matter of hours. Some guys will take weeks, months to learn, and there are just some people out there that, you know, you would think have got like 13 left thumbs and just will never get it. It's just a risky take. I think that you're not going to see too many businesses knocking about where you've got a mass of employees working for you doing traditional window cleaning, because of it's so easy to start up and relatively inexpensive. A lot of guys that have got the gumption and the drive to do that kind of work, a lot of them think, well, actually, if I'm doing all this work, I'm doing all this graft, then, you know, why shouldn't I start up myself? And why shouldn't they? You know. So, yeah, the water-fed pole side of life, again, the pros. I mean, you can work in most weathers. You know, the safety aspect is, you know, it's a lot safer. You know, I mean, if you drop a water-fed pole on a car, you'll damage it. If you drop it on a person, you'll upset them or stroke hurt them. If you drop a ladder on a person, you'll bloody kill them. You don't have to do as much in the way of climbing. We have ladders on each of our vehicles to climb onto a flat roof, for example, where we can't reach the windows beyond. But we don't do traditional window cleaning anymore for the reasons we've just discussed, in terms of insurance, in terms of safety, etc. Exterior window cleaning is carried out with water-fed pole, but I like having guys that know how to clean windows in the traditional manner, in case I need to send them inside a premises to clean windows internally. you know, you can clean windows in all weathers. You know, it's a lot safer. You know, it gives an image, I think, to customers, that if they can see you with a liveried vehicle, with a water-fed pole system, you know, with all the equipment that you've got, etc., it becomes apparent very quickly to the customer that this stuff ain't cheap. And if the customer can see in their mind that something isn't cheap, they can see that, you know, perhaps, and this is, you know, maybe being a little bit unfair, I think, to traditional window cleaners. A lot of people think that guys with water-fed poles are more professional. That's not necessarily the case, but there's that image in their head that's saying, well, if he's got 3 vans and he's got all that equipment, and that he's spent all that money and all that outlay, etc., and he's got guys working for him, then he must be far more professional than Eric that works in Blackpool. And that's not the case, but there is that perception that's there. Another good point around sort of water-fed pole is that you can do the work faster. I had a conversation with a guy who has been watching the channel for a bit, called Paul. Paul, you know, was asking the question, you know, how much quicker, you know, can you operate with a water-fed pole? Now, I did say, to be fair, that it depends on the person. If you can do maybe, you know, and Paul said he could do 3 houses an hour doing traditional. You've got 2 rows of houses, let's say. You know, not you know, like semi-detached. You know, a row of semi-detached houses on each side of the road, and a traditional window cleaner is on one side, and then I'm on the other side with a water-fed pole. I am fairly certain that I can get to the other end of that row of houses quicker than the guy with traditional, and get the same finish. That might not be a popular opinion amongst traditional window cleaners, but it's the God's honest truth. I've had many a customer say, you know, that the water-fed pole keeps the windows cleaner for longer, and that's the windows, the frames, the sills, the doors, etc., a lot cleaner than perhaps someone with a traditional mop and squeegee. Again, it's more, that's not to say that traditional is better than, you know, water-fed poles is better than traditional. What it is to say is that it still depends on the person doing the job. But even if the guy who is the best traditional window cleaner in the world comes up against a guy who, you know, does water-fed pole window cleaning, the finish, let's say the finish is equally as good, etc., the guy with the water-fed pole can get through that much, you know, a lot more work a lot quicker. Now, not quite, perhaps, I would say, it's not perhaps twice as much work. I can't get through double the work of a traditional window cleaner, but I can certainly do, I can do 4 houses an hour traditional. I know that I can do that. But I can do maybe 6 or 7, sometimes 8 maybe, depending on size and layout, etc. But I would say at least 6 or 7 houses an hour. You know, taking my time, you know, not rushing, doing you know, concentrating on delivering a good job, you know. So with that in mind, then you can get through, you know, a lot more houses, a lot safer, you know, do more houses potentially in a day, turnover of job, etc. Your work rate is higher, your earning potential is higher, you know. So, you know, it swings and roundabouts on that side of it. But you see a lot of guys with water-fed pole, and I always use Lee Pryor as an example. He has grown a business of 20 plus vans, something like that, using water-fed pole. They do not do traditional, you know, they do not do commercial, you know, they do pure residential window cleaning, using water-fed pole. Now, as good as Lee is in business, you know, I am fairly certain he could not have grown a business that size if he had a group of guys going around offering traditional window cleaning. He just couldn't do it, for the reasons that we've just discussed. You know, it's a lot, you know, with that ease of access to the market, why should a guy be an employee? and you'll start up because it's relatively inexpensive. What stops my guys, perhaps, if you like, from starting their own businesses, a lot, not some of them don't want to start businesses, but even if someone was working for me really wanted to start a business using water-fed pole, a lot of the time the money side, the investment side up front, the finance, the risk involved in starting a business from scratch, going straight to water-fed pole, is too much for some people. The downside to water-fed pole, again, is the money cost. The fact that you do need a vehicle. There is no question. It doesn't matter if you've got a trolley starting out cleaning windows using water-fed pole, you're going to need a vehicle. You need a vehicle because you can't, unlike traditional window cleaning where you can carry everything you need to go house to house to house to house to house to house, you cannot drag behind you a trolley, a water-fed pole, and 6 jerry cans of water. You know what I mean? It can't be done. Or it can be done, but you're not going to be as effective. What you're going to do, one jerry can of water might do maybe 3 houses, 3 average size houses, semi-detached and all that sort of jazz. You're going to run out of water. And is it really viable to be topping up from the customer's source? Not a lot of people would go for that, but it's a lot easier, bottom line, to operate traditional without a vehicle than it is water-fed pole. You need a vehicle, and it doesn't matter if it's a small car with a trolley and a reel system in there with a series of jerry cans. It doesn't matter if it's a massive tank system. You're not going to pull 600 litres worth of water behind you, are you, on a little cart? I mean, I could be wrong, but yeah, I'd be interested to see someone try that. Those are the main downsides to the water-fed pole. The cost of the actual equipment, replacement parts, all that sort of good stuff. But on balance, I think water-fed pole swung it for me, especially after my accident. I sort of sat down and went, if I want to grow a business, taking the accident out of it, you see a lot more bigger businesses with water-fed pole than you do with traditional. Now, why is that? For the reason that we've just discussed. It's easier to grow a business water-fed pole because it can be you can quickly turn over the training for staff. You can systemize things a lot more than you can with traditional. There's a lot less things can go wrong with a water-fed pole business than there is with traditional. I mean, if you drop a water-fed pole in someone's car, you're going to upset someone. If you come off a ladder, one of your lads gets killed and sues you, and it's like, well, it's, the risks to you as a business owner are lower. So, and for that reason, I think personally, that's why I went over to water-fed pole, because my aim at the beginning was to just make money. But when I realised just how much money was on the table in terms of being able to make money, I soon realised that, my granddad used to coin a famous saying, which was to, keep the wealth within the family, because it was important for him to see his kids do well, and it was important for him to see that his grandchildren do even better, and we progress. In his mindset was, you progress, each generation should do better. And my granddad grew up dirt poor, barefoot poor. His first pair of shoes was given to him by a Canadian soldier that came over before D-Day. He got his first pair of boots then. His first shoes, if you like, okay. And then my mum's generation didn't really go abroad for holidays, etc. They started getting more professional jobs. Like, my mum was a nurse. My old man, he used to work in the NHS. He was in the Navy and then he worked in the NHS, etc. So each generation did a little bit better. And then, I've started a business, etc. So these things over time to get better, for things to get better. And for me, I wanted the wealth to stay within my family. I didn't want to be that guy, and each to his own, I'm not judging, but me personally, I didn't want to be that guy that started a window cleaning business, get to the end of my working life, sell up my round, and really not have that much to show for it. once I became aware of how much money was on the table, how much potential the business had, I wanted to grow it as big as I physically could, and I'm working on it. And I'm not perfect, but I'm trying to move in that direction. Okay, and you know, for me, when I'm old and wrinkly and too old to go out on the pole to clean windows, etc., when I'm too old to work on the glass, I want the business to be able to work for me. And I have young guys, I'll employ young guys to go out and clean windows and perform the services that we offer. I will take up a director's role, if you like, and find more work and generate, you know, income for the business in other ways, streamline things, come up with new systems, etc. The franchising side of it is still on the table. You know, the commercial side is opening up a bit more. So that's where I wanted to take it. But I couldn't do that if I was on a ladder doing traditional window cleaning. And if I clung to that, in my opinion, would be what was holding me back. So I decided, while I was young enough, to take that plunge and take that risk and try and grow it. And we shall see how it turns out. You know, I'm by no means perfect. I haven't got all the answers, but I think this is personally the best way I can go, and I will do what I can to sort of drive my business forward. And that's that. So I've just noticed, obviously I've been prattling on for about half an hour now, so if you've enjoyed it to the end of this video, you know, kudos to you. Well done for listening to me prattle on for half an hour about window cleaning. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I'm intrigued to know where you guys are up to in your businesses, etc. If you've started up, if you've thought about starting up and you haven't, you know, made the leap yet, then fair play to you. What's holding you back? You know, what challenges are you facing? You know, hit me up in the comment section. I want to hear your stories. And yeah, so it's absolutely persisting it down once again. I'm gonna go grab a coffee, and then I'm gonna head home. So yeah, keep well, guys. All the very best to you and yours, and have a profitable and productive week as per usual. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you in the next video. All the very best.